The sun appears to be setting on Kevin Durant's run in Phoenix. Shams reporting yesterday the Suns and KD's business partner, Rich Kleinman, have met multiple times over the past week, sifting through trade scenarios. And Shams reports the teams that have expressed interest include the Rockets, the Spurs, the Heat, the Timberwolves, and the Knicks. So let's start with the win man. Wendy, what can you tell us about Kevin Durant and his future?
Well, there's a couple of things we have to remember here. Number one, we have to remember that Kevin Durant makes $55 million. And to put a trade like that together, you're going to need a significant number of high-dollar players. And so when you're looking at Durant's choices, if he's truly going to be able to get a say here, you have to have a good team on the other side of a Durant trade that he would be interested in. The second thing is that he only has 1 year left on his contract. So as he chooses which team he may favor, it may come down to which one of these teams has interest in giving him a $100 million contract extension he is eligible for. So you have to compute that. Once I've said all that, point out that the teams that fit that bill the most are teams like San Antonio and Houston, who could make this trade and on the other side of it have a roster that could compete for the highest titles, the highest stuff in the league. But those teams are on different timelines because those teams are built with players in their mid to early 20s, whereas Durant is 37. It may not fit the same timeline where they would invest $100 million into him. So this is complicated, and I expect other teams that were not on this list to remain in the bidding here, and this could go a number of different directions.
Jay, Will, when it comes to KD, I always turn to you.
Mm-hmm. I personally feel that the best fit is Minnesota. Number one, it's like Outlaws, right? It's like Tupac and Snoop on the album cover. I mean, that is Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant. USA Basketball was an incredible time for them. You saw their bond continue to mature. Anthony Edwards does not call any player in the world his favorite player. He's one of the most competitive dudes you ever met. He'll call KD that. And Mark Lure, Alex Rodriguez, new ownership in Minnesota. If it's a year deal, I would sign KD to an extension because it helps Anthony Edwards get to the next level. He's a superstar, but Anthony Edwards can become a supernova if he has KD by his side.
What do you think?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, 100% KD and Ant-Man makes the most sense, right? They're both two players that just talks about ball. That's all they want to do is hoop. Forget all the other stuff. It's just about basketball. KD has been like that his entire career. Ant-Man is coming around to that with him saying, I don't want to be the face, I just want to hoop. It's a perfect relationship. Hey, man, I think y'all both said it back.
That's it. So that's where you're looking.
It's between them and the Knicks. Like, you know, they both have the right assets when you come, like, matching the money up, right? Like, they have Julius Randle, a couple other guys that's making a significant amount of money that you can match that up with. Like Wendy said, like, you have to have the pieces to actually
KD plus
fit.
Anthony Edwards, in your opinion, equals winning the West next year?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
With ancillary pieces around him, yeah.
Yeah,
Hands down.
I mean, they've been in the conference final each the last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
And then what does KD plus the Knicks equal? Let's live in a world where, and Wendy said it on this show the other day, in order to make a KD trade, the Knicks would probably have to include Karl Towns.
Yeah.
So in a world in which the Knicks traded Karl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant and whatever else got shifted around in that, does that team go to the finals?
That has to be wait the same when you choose a coach, right? Like, I feel like KD has to go where somewhere.
Oh, we'll get to that part.
System. Like, I can't say he can go to the Knicks.
Are you interested in coaching the Knicks?
Yes, I am.
Put
me up there. Hey, put me up there, man.
I'll say Kevin Durant is still a 1A player.
Yeah.
And I think the odds of them getting to the NBA Finals in the East is way better than what the odds are right now with the way the Knicks are currently
Help me with
constructed.
1A. Are you saying Jalen Brunson is their 1A right now and Towns is their 1B, and that would switch if Durant was there?
Well, no, I think you have two 1As.
Yeah.
I think you have guys that can
legit.
Yeah, two legit superstars that can do it and carry the load. Right now, at this age, Kevin Durant's not going to take on the main load for the main course of the season, right? But Jalen Brunson can do that, and then they can flip-flop in moments where you need them to be closers. Right. It gives you two multi-dimensional closers and two buckets in the game of basketball in New York City.
Easily.
It's an interesting, Wendy, KD is such an interesting figure, right? He's just a different guy. And it's very difficult to put yourself in his head and know exactly what it is he's looking for. He's moved around so many different times. What is our sense of what he's looking for at this point? And what is our sense, if we have one, of what a timeline on this might be?
Well, I definitely think he's got interest in the Knicks. He has interest in the Knicks going back 6-7 years when he was a free agent in 2019. He chose the Nets, but he's got interest in the Knicks. The reality is this: you're either trading an in-your-prime all-NBA player under long-term controlled contract in Karl Towns, or to make the math work and make it a legal trade, you're probably trading 3 rotation players, 2 high-level rotation players like an OG Anunoby and a Mitchell Robinson, something like that. And so the Knicks are already short on the rotation players. So you have to look at it if you're the Knicks, if on the other side of trading for a $55 million player, are you ready to compete for the whole thing now, instantly? He's 37, you're not building. You could get different opinions on that, but I would just say do not disregard a 20-year-old, in his 20s, all-NBA player that Karl Towns is. That's not a player that you can easily find. They've invested a lot in him, and that's the type of trade that you'd have to make. And, all-NBA player for all-NBA player, I don't know. I don't know if you automatically win that trade.
Now, as we have looked at this thing from the Knicks' perspective, I've said all along, if they can get Giannis, it's worth doing almost anything. Because Giannis is 7 years younger. This is not meant to slight Kevin Durant at all. He's one of the greatest players that ever lived and maybe the best pure scorer that ever lived. But he's going to be 37 years old. If you're the Knicks, do you do it? Do you trade Karl Anthony Towns for Kevin Durant?
I think that's tough right now, man. I think it's like you said, it's the pieces around. If I can get some of those pieces to stay, obviously he's making $55 million. But if I can get some of those pieces to be around without Karl Anthony Towns, for sure I'd make the trade.
And the last thing is, how much do players think about this stuff? I sit here and say, go east, go east, go east. If you're Kevin Durant and you want to win, go east. Do players think that way?
I think, if I'm talking to Kevin Durant circumstance, I think it's the best fit for him. I don't know if it's technically about all winning, right? Like when you talk about his game and like just wanting to play hoop and wanting to score and be happy, right? I don't know if it's all about winning with him. So if I was to dial it back, I think that Minnesota just makes more sense because of the continuity that he has with Ant and the team that they'll be able to build around him.
All right, we'll see. So we mentioned the Knicks. They have one big hurdle they need to get over before we
trade destinations. The teams in the mix who've expressed interest: the Rockets, the Heat, the Timberwolves, the Knicks, and the Spurs. Several wild card suitors have also made inquiries about KD as well.
Brian Windhorst back with us here on SportsCenter. Wendy, who do you view as a legitimate potential suitor for Durant?
You have to understand that Durant makes $55 million. And so to get that type of contract onto your books, you're going to have to be able to send out quite a bit of salary. And on the other end, still be a really competitive team to get Durant to want to go there because they seem to be working together. So the two teams that make the most sense with that criteria that are on the list are the Houston Rockets and San Antonio Spurs. They have youth, so their salaries are a little bit cheaper. They can trade some of their older players. They could help the Suns right away and get on the other side of it and still have a very competitive team with Durant. The problem is that those teams' timelines with their young players in their mid and early 20s don't necessarily match up with the player on the last year of his contract at age 37. So I think this is going to be a bit of a complicated trade to put together because I'm not sure those two teams especially are motivated to make maybe the best offer.
It would be compelling to see him on one of those teams, especially San Antonio next to Victor Wembanyama. Meanwhile, one of the many teams that likely has some level of interest in KD is the New York Knicks, who have their own issues to deal with at head coach after firing Tom Thibodeau last week. Got to figure out what they're doing. What is the current standing with the Knicks and that head coach search?
Well, the Knicks were really prioritizing getting Jason Kidd and had the door slammed in their face by the Dallas Mavericks. They tried for some other coaches who are under contract. It's a bit of a strange strategy to pin all your hopes on guys under contract. While they were told no on all these names, I wouldn't say they've 100% ruled them out. They could circle back to them and see if there's a change of heart, especially if they're willing to make a trade offer. But they're going to have to move to the second page, which is potentially guys who've been recently fired, a guy like Mike Brown or a guy like Taylor Jenkins, who had a great run in Memphis.
Hi everybody, Jeannie Young is going to show you all how easy it is to make delicious homemade Salisbury steak. This recipe right here, amazing. Tastes so good. Super simple to make. If you make a Gina Young style, you'll love this recipe. You're going to need 2 pounds of ground meat. I have an 80-20 ground beef. By all means, you could use a ground beef and a ground turkey mix, or you could just use ground turkey. Okay, we have some soy sauce, we have some chicken bouillon powder. We're going to use a nice sweet Vidalia onion and some fresh mushrooms. You're going to need some flour, some beef broth, and some seasonings to make it come together and taste good. We have salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder, and paprika, and you're going to need a little bit of oil. And alongside of our Salisbury steaks, I always like to serve it with one or two of the things. Mashed potatoes or rice on the side. Make sure your hands are impeccably clean. Let's make Salisbury steak. The tasteful other ingredients I want to bring into the equation I almost forgot about, but it's never too late. We're going to use some breadcrumbs. Now, you all that are familiar with me, you know that I love some good cornflake breadcrumbs. Are so delicious, and I'm not kidding you. But if you just have some regular breadcrumbs, you can use those, or panko breadcrumbs. And we're going to also introduce a nice egg so that we can make our Salisbury steak nice and soft and super moist. The first thing that we're going to do is we want to give our Salisbury steak some amazing flavor. Now listen to me, if you wanted to put a little bit of liquid smoke in here, it'll give it a nice smoky flavor. But just keep in mind, if you're ever using liquid smoke, use a little bit. A little bit goes a long way, okay? I just thought about that. So now I like to use a ½ pound of our breadcrumbs, okay? It helps to bind it together. And like I said, makes it nice, soft, airy, and just an all-out great texture. Okay, so now I'm gonna crack this egg. Just one large egg will work for 2 pounds, right? Put that in, and then we're gonna season it. Making sure that we season to perfection, all right? So we're gonna put some black pepper in, because you need it. I'm gonna put some onion and garlic powder in. Paprika, it's not smoked paprika. If you can't use salt, what do I always say? Don't use it. It's just that simple. Okay, let's put some salt. Okay, we're gonna mix everything together. If you wanted to put a little bit of milk in here, you could do that, but today I'm not gonna do it. We're gonna mix this together very well and begin to make up our patties. I'm gonna use this handy dandy masher that I have to blend my spices with the meat and that egg, just like so. When you're making up your patty, you can make like a hamburger patty shape, or you can kind of go oval, whichever floats your fancy, right? And then we're gonna begin to put them in a pan. You can put a little bit of oil in the pan, but you don't have to, because the hamburger will basically make its own oil. We're getting ready to fry up our Salisbury steak before they go in the oven. So now let's take this time to make up our patties. This is one of my husband's favorite recipes. He could eat this like every day. Are you kidding me? He could eat this every day, but I'm gonna be honest. I don't blame him. I don't blame him, because it is just that delicious, right? And so here's what I like to do. Instead of like a hamburger shape, I wanna kind of do it a little bit more oval like this to make it look like those famous Salisbury steak. Remember the frozen ones that taste so good? I'm gonna admit, I still buy the frozen ones, but when I make it this way, listen, ain't no stopping you, right? So let's get them right into our pan on a medium to medium high heat and cook them just like you would a hamburger. Okay, and once they're nice, beautiful, and golden brown onto both sides, we're gonna transfer these patties right to a nice baking dish. I have a 9x13 baking dish. These are gonna go in the oven on 350 degrees. And right now when we cook them, we're not aiming to fully cook them. We're just aiming to get a nice sear onto the outsides where both, you know, the top and the bottom is golden brown. The reason why I say don't worry about getting the inside done, because when these go in the oven with that luscious gravy, they're going to continue to cook. So no worries there. And this gravy is finger licking good. Our Salisbury steak cooks up. Let's cut some nice sweet Vidalia onion. You can slice it, you can dice it, whichever way is just fine. I'm going to use a nice amount. This is a medium-sized onion that I want to slice down, and I'm putting some fresh mushrooms in. I know that there's a lot of people that's not a fan of mushrooms. If you're not, just leave it out. You could use green bell peppers, right? Sometimes I do. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Slice that thing. Okay, you can use a separate pan to give them a nice saute, or right before your Salisbury steak is ready to come out, you can throw these in the pan with it to saute up. Okay, I'm gonna use a separate pan today. I'm going to use this whole onion. Make sure you clean off your mushrooms, y'all. Clean them off. Them things be dirty, right? Lovely. That's perfect. And since my mushrooms are already sliced, I'm just going to, cut them down a little bit. I'm going to put the mushrooms and onions in together to cook with just a little bit of butter. All right, beautiful. When you're sauteing up your vegetables, always salt and pepper them to give them some even more flavor. It smells so good in here right now. Go ahead and take our mushrooms and our onions. We're going to put them into the pan. We're not going to saute them, we're not going to salt and pepper them until they're almost done. I'll be using about 2 tablespoons of sweet cream butter. Your butter can be salted or unsalted. Mushrooms, they're going. I got some extra Salisbury steak over there. We're going to give them a nice flip over. Give them a nice flip over. Yes, look at that. Should have some nice golden brown color to them. And then these are going to go into our baking dish. And once we put these in the baking dish, I'm going to show you how to make this delicious gravy that tastes so amazing. Go ahead and get your oven preheated to 350 degrees. Our Salisbury steak is perfectly to where we can go ahead and put it into our pan, okay? Just like so. Our vegetables are nice and sauteed, and I wanted to make sure that I salt and peppered them to give them some extra flavor, so I went ahead and did that, okay? So we're gonna put these right into our pan. I got a little tiny one. Just like this. And with this same pan, with all of these drippings here, this is called fond, right? And with this fond, it's gonna make a delicious gravy. You can do this with chicken, you can do this with pork chops, and the gravy is always delicious, okay? So now, here's what we're gonna do first before we make our gravy. Take those sauteed onions and mushrooms, throw them right on top of your Salisbury steak. I know, right? I know, your mouth should be watering, your stomach should be rumbling. So we're gonna take this oil, but it looks like I need some more oil. So we're gonna put about a ½ cup of oil. When you're making a roux, you use a ½ cup of fat, or that can be butter or oil, and a ½ cup of the flour. We're gonna mix that flour into the oil, and that's your roux. That's the base of your gravy. Let's do that, and then I'll show you how much liquid you're gonna use. Today we're gonna be using beef broth. Go ahead and put our desired amount of flour in. Like I said, once again, equal parts flour, equal parts oil. Mix that thing together, right? And then when we do that, you always want to make sure that you're cooking the flour at least for 4 minutes. 4 minutes is going to get rid of that raw flavor that flour has. At any time, this should never look like plaster. You know that, right? You don't want it to look like that. You want it to look kind of like a smooth peanut butter. Now, the longer you cook it, the darker it'll get. But this recipe, you only have to cook this flour for about 4 minutes, okay? You see how everything's coming together? And I'm gradually mixing the flour in with the oil. And then we're gonna go in with our beef broth. Let's just say you didn't have enough. Use water. Or let's just say you didn't have beef broth. Use chicken broth, okay? And if you use water, you just season it a bit more for more flavor, right? Look at this. That is the consistency. Look, it took it. Yum. A whisk out. All right, because you're gonna need to keep on stirring that thing while the gravy is a-making, right? Because if you don't, you're gonna have lumps. You just have to whisk it when you're making gravy. I don't really know what I wanted to say to you, but keep whisking it as you're putting the liquid in. You get the gist of where I'm coming from, right? So now, just like this. All right, and you will, don't worry, you will know that perfect consistency that you're looking for when you're making a gravy. Everybody knows the consistency. And if you take a look at it right now, it's a little too thin, right? But it thickens up. It thickens up. It's the flour inside of that oil that makes this nice and thick. If at any time it's too thick, add more liquid. And then guess what? Even though we have a ton of flavor in this pan, from those lovely burgers, right, and all the seasonings that comes from that burger, even though we have that seasoning, you still have to season this. How are we going to season it to give it some good flavor? We're going in with chicken bouillon powder, right? You can use a beef bouillon if you wanted to, but this right here, that's what floats my fanny. Okay, I want it to be a bit darker. I'm going to use some soy sauce. If you don't want to use soy sauce, you can always use something that's called kitchen bouquet. Kitchen bouquet gives the color without any flavor. See, this has darkened up my gravy a bit more. And then I'm going to go in with garlic powder and some black pepper. I'm going to bring the camera close so you can see. Close look at this, and my goodness, yeah, gravy a taste. And if it tastes good, we're pouring it right on top of our Salisbury steaks. Taste your food. Taste it so you know what you're feeding to your family and friends and loved ones, and then when they're eating, you can just sit back and know that it tastes good. But if you're not tasting the food before you feed it to them, you don't know what you're feeding to them, right? Let's taste our gravy. If our gravy is to perfection, we don't need to season it no more. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Let's pour this right on top. Pour all of it. Oh yeah, right into the pan. And guess what we do now? Into the oven, 350 degrees. I'm just gonna give you the whole patty because I ain't eating dinner right now. Look at this.